Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. We're obviously not where we normally are. For many of you who watch us on Patreon, we've done a lot of things out in nature, and we thought we would do a lifting show out here as well. So today we're recording this on March 22nd, 2020, and for those of you out there, you know that means that we are all in the midst of the different things going on with the issues surrounding the coronavirus that's affecting most everybody in one way or another. So tonight we decided that we would have a generalized conversation about a lot of things because a lot of different things are going on, including differences in energy. And so we thought we would try to bring up some different topics regarding that, some other conversation around the coronavirus. But again, instead of this being on the Patreon side, that we would go ahead and do it as a part of the lifting show. So welcome, everybody. If you haven't visited our website, please do so. If you really are new to this, we always recommend that if you go to our website and you look at the episodes tabs, please start at the beginning because, again, more than ever, this is the time of really spiritual growth more than anything. And there are a lot of skills that everyone needs to learn how to do, and now more than ever. So we know a lot of people are maybe not out and about as much. Some people may not have what we have still here in Arizona, which is the ability to get out in nature. And so you have a lot of time on your hands. So we always will encourage people to utilize your time wisely and work not only on, some people are recommending your exercising skills or your cooking skills or different things, but to also think about your spiritual growth as well and work on that. So we would recommend anyone new to us to start at the very beginning of the episodes. Probably the first 6 are the most important as far as what we recommend for skills building, something that everybody is going to have to work on. So we bless this transmission. We want it to be only for everyone's highest good as always. And we bless you during this time of crisis for many people. And remember, this is the time of great co-creation. So what do you want? Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So we bless everyone here. So it's hard to know where to begin. I think for many of you, you may have seen the last couple of episodes that were True You, that you were on, and you'll probably be on more of them, where again the COVID-19 conversation came up. I wasn't present at that time because I do work. And so there are a couple things, I would like to contribute regarding that conversation if it's okay. First and foremost, I know that there are a lot of belief systems in place right now as to what's going on, the origins of the disease. Is this something that actually was a natural cause, or is this something that may be something nefarious also developed? So all of those things are out there right now, and Chris, you've spoken on some of it as well. My part of the conversation is important to find out how some of these things are occurring. I do agree. But I wanted to have the conversation because no matter what your belief system is, there are people getting ill right now. Okay, so the cause of it is one conversation. Then the reality of what is occurring is another. So one of the things I want to have you all think about, because we also are going to talk about co-creating here in just a bit, is the fact that in some areas, there are multiple people becoming sick at the same time. And again, you talk about the high risk group, you have high risk people becoming sick all at the same time. When you talk about the infrastructure of the healthcare industry, no country, no one is set up for even a pretty significant subset of a population to all become ill with something that needs hospitalization or assistive care until they even recover, because most will recover. No one's set up for that kind of infrastructure. The question really becomes, should a society be set up for that? In general, we've never had it. We've never had a situation, and I try to use Prescott as an example. So here we are in Prescott, Arizona. Prescott, Arizona is known as a place where there are a lot of retirees. The older population is coming here. So you're having people who fit more into the potential of a higher risk group. So I just, let's say, do the math. The math is that, let's say Prescott had 50,000 people in it. Let's say that 25% of them were in that high risk group. So that's basically 12,500. Let's say that 10% of that group at pretty much the same time would need to be seeing doctors, maybe needing oxygen support. Again, I'm not saying they're all going to die, because the vast majority will not, but they need the extra support for a period of time. That's like 1,200 beds. We're not set up for 1,200 beds all at the same time. So you have places right now where in New York and different places, much higher population. So it is a fact that right now with this disease, if an entire population caught it all at the same time, you would have a problem being able to have the infrastructure, not because all these people were going to necessarily die if you caught it, because that's one of the false pieces of information that's going basically in fear, what people are fearing of, but that you would need a lot of people who would maybe need supplemental oxygen for a small period of time. Maybe they would need some respiratory treatments for a short period of time, and then they would recover. But do you have the infrastructure even for that? So what you're watching right now is you're watching an infrastructure issue, because some places were not prepared, nor necessarily should they have been prepared for the introduction of the disease into their area and have the infrastructure ready for so many people requiring assistance. Now, the truth of the matter is 80% of the population, assuming everyone got sick. And guess what? Even if we did nothing, everyone would not get sick, meaning they wouldn't necessarily even catch the virus. As far as sick goes, 80% of a population, would show hardly any symptoms, or they wouldn't show anything at all. That's an enormous amount of a population. So what you're thinking about is those people that are in a category that they could be more susceptible. So again, trying to take yourself away and out of that population as a circulating virus goes around is not a bad idea. Caring for those people and showing that you care for them by getting groceries for them or whatever, it's a wonderful thing. So you have to understand what the legitimate issue of this particular pandemic, and pandemic only means it's gone around the world. I think the hard thing again about how people have been unfortunately prepped for this is that there are movies out there and different things using the word pandemic as if it means the plague and Black Death. Everyone's seen the movies where it's the virus and it's going to turn you into zombies, or it's going to it's one of those viruses that is going to really wipe out the population. But the word pandemic will be used in all of them because the word technically means it's gone around the world. Pan, P-A-N, means around. So the flu is a pandemic every year because it finds its way around into most countries. So I am saddened greatly by the press and by different people who are, in my humble opinion, taking very common terms that are used and making them now, in many people's eyes, feels like it's a plague, when it's not a plague. And if no one knew about this, and this would be left to go around, most people would tend to believe, wow, we had a really rough flu season. We've had rough flu seasons, guys, before, and most localities, if they have a push on their infrastructures that's really hard, you may or may not even know about it because they may not even have told you. And it happens. And now let me talk to you about if you're in the midst of it. If you are a healthcare worker, or if you are a family member, or you are of someone, where one of your loved one, or you have this crisis going on, and it's around you, it feels like a war zone. Can you imagine what the psychology is to people if, you had 500 people, again, who weren't necessarily going to die of this, but they all needed, to be in, a room with extra oxygen support or whatever, and you only have the beds for 200. What are you going to do with these people? Where are you going to put them? How are you going to put up the infrastructure then? It could be tent cities to do all that. When you are in the midst of that, and again, I'm not trying to poo-poo this. I'm trying to give a balanced thought process. If you are in the middle of that, and you now have a nursing shortage, and you have a healthcare personnel shortage or whatever, you're going to be asked to work longer hours. You're going to be asked to take extra shifts. You're going to be asked to do all of this. And you're in it all the time. It now becomes your life. Guess what? It's going to feel like a war zone. Okay? So I think what disturbs me more is the fact that so much focus is being done by the press to show real life stress in those areas, but somehow it's been perverted to the point where it makes people think this is how it is for everyone. And that is not a true statement. The vast majority, again, of a population would have very subclinical symptoms. This is actually not like that. I even heard a disturbing news article that, again, I'm really not happy, again, with the press, and neither are you. Something as simple as this. And this is how the divide and conquer happen. Here there was this big discussion on should the Florida beaches be closed, okay? We're out in nature right now. I'm telling you, if you can go out in nature, take a walk or whatever, you're going to feel much better. If you see people walking around you or whatever, wave to them, because you're dispersed now in a much greater volume of air than being enclosed in a home. That in and of itself is a good thing to prevent the spread of disease, to be actually outdoors walking around. So here they had, apparently they were watching a lot of people, youth in general, on the beaches in Florida. So, should they not have a good time? Should they not be with whomever, their significant other or their boyfriend or girlfriend? We all know what it's like in the romance of being on a beach. Should they be able to touch? Should they be able to kiss? I mean, it would be pretty hysterical that we would be walking down the street and be separated since we sleep in the same bed at night. But some of that hysteria is going on. What did the news do? The news decided to play a young girl, don't know her age, who really, again, you're in the teenage years, you have kind and caring, or you have kind of callous and cold. We all know that. So what did they pick? They picked a young girl who made a statement that said, yeah, I don't know what this is all about, because, none of the young people are going to get it. It's just going to affect the old people, and they're old. And so they played that, and they made people think that's truly the representation of how the young feel about the old people. That's a divide and conquer technique that is used. Now, I know plenty of young people who adore their grandparents. They would be the ones running out to the store. They would be the ones making sure they had what they need. They would be using common sense, and even if they got something from the store, they may take a wipe and wipe it down and place it on the outside of where their grandparents are. And if their grandparents, if there was a fear, they'd walk away and let their So this is what I'm saying. You have to kind of understand the context and potentially some of the, I hate to say, nefarious reasoning for sensationalizing all of these stories. So while you guys are all at home, I would recommend a movie for you to watch. Now you're going to say, how is this related? And I'll explain. I would recommend, it was in the theaters not too long, if you guys can see it, watch the movie Bombshell. Bombshell is actually the story that kind of started the Me Too movement a long time ago about harassment. Has to do with Fox News. The reason I would say please watch it is not because I'm trying to bring up the Me Too movement. It's because I want you to see what was going on in the background. I want you to see these news people. I want you to see how, there was denial on some areas and how they sensationalize and how they're hired people to do that. I want you to pay attention to that part of the movie, because that is not an exaggeration, and these are the people who are flawed human beings that now are in a certain mindset for ratings to actually deliver the news to you. I think many of you have seen the president be upset with them. I'm definitely upset. Most of the colleagues that I talked to it's really criminal. The unbalanced and the fear state that the press in general are doing to people. So I would recommend that movie again for that reason, so that you can give an idea and please understand that just because it's said on the news does not mean it is fact. And so this is where, again, you discern what's going on out there. It's one of the skills we say, discern. Again, discern the message, not the messenger, and see what you feel with all of the things that are going on. So again, my heart goes out to those people that are now isolated to either protect themselves. I hope people become very creative now. I'll give another example. I am in the healthcare. I do go out and visit people. I have been in some of these facilities, long-term care in different places that are now isolated from not letting anyone in unless you're a healthcare worker that needs to go in. Unfortunately, some of the application of disease spread, I feel, is overdone, because not only have they protected these people from the outside, they're acting as if the virus is already in by doing things like canceling activities. The disease isn't in the building, but yet they're acting as if it is. And so I have seen some things that would literally break your heart, because some of these people, the only thing they really had going for them were their activities, and now that's not happening. And I've seen some people, it's really sad to see the spark gone from their eyes, because the only little things that they had are now taken. This is where people need to be creative. If you play musical instruments, call up these places and ask to play, and let it be Zoomed in. Let it be Skyped in. Use your talents and be creative in the way that you try to reach out to help other people, and think of these facilities. Please think of these facilities and try to promote different ways to allow things in for people like that are now kind of shut up, from the rest of society. So be creative and use all your skills. So that's just kind of my personal take on what's going on. And some of the contributing factors that are given a lot of news right now, in this. Again, look things up for yourself. Look at last year's flu season. How many deaths were there? My father called up and he couldn't believe. He looked it up. I said, "Yeah, Dad, that's normal." "Well, why are they making such a big deal of this if this is the death rate annually of even the flu? This is nowhere near it." I said, Well, I'm glad you're asking that question. I don't have an answer for you, but I'm glad you're pondering what's really going on. And maybe some of it's overblown. I think most reasonable people are. But again, if you are in the area where some of that is happening, if you are in the healthcare infrastructure where this is happening, it is going to feel like a war zone. So send out much loving and caring and healing support to anyone involved in that arena, because it will affect you, especially, again, as healthcare workers who want to help others, and they may be feeling a little helpless right now. But it doesn't mean the whole society is dying. But if you're in it all the time, it feels like it is. So understand these perspectives. So I don't know if we want to continue talking about some more areas in that, or you want to go on to something else?
Well, you were going to talk about the definition of COVID-19.
So it's a very interesting thing that is going on, especially if you are in the belief camp that there's something else going on, or if you're in the belief camp that you believe that this was not a natural occurrence. I think most people, reasonable people, know, if they've done any studying right now, that unfortunately there is a history out there where there have been experimentations that have occurred, where many governments have experienced, tried to do have things ready for biological warfare. That's unknown. That's unknown now in the history. There's also unknown out there that some of these things were tested on people or tested on populations. If anyone says you're absolutely crazy, I'm going to go, well, why don't we talk? Remember back when, I can't remember the dictator who was testing and using a lot of gas stuff on his own people, the Kurds. So no, it's happened. And I would like to say our government has never done that, but that would probably be a lie that you just don't know about. And it's happened. It happened at the Tuskegee Institute where people were utilized there. It's happened. So I'm not here to debate whether or not it happens. There's plenty of known facts in history where these things actually have occurred. Whether you believe it was testing for the public's good or whether you believe it is nefarious, I'm not even going to get into that conversation. You can, you're free to believe what you want. But right now, I think, again, could it be? Sure. But, people are sensing probably a lot of things that may have basis in actual truth, and then they're trying to relate it to something to say, that's why this is that. That may not be true, but their inner sense that there's something more going on may be perfectly, but people have to feel an association. I figured this out, or this is definitely related to this or whatever, because it gives a sense of understanding and closure, and that's what we try to do. One of the most interesting one to me is that, that people are saying it's that, how was COVID-19 really created? Was it, created in a laboratory in Wuhan in China, in the labs? Was it not? What's going on? Okay, they're doing that. But some terms are actually terms that have been used for a long time, like the capital C, small o, capital V has always stood for coronavirus. Coronavirus is not a new term. Coronavirus is a description on a cellular level of really what something kind of looks like. And so C, small o, V basically is a term that's been used forever since we knew there was such a thing as a coronavirus. So that's not new. ID stands for identification. 19 was the year it was discovered in. So when you're, the new novel in, a coronavirus item. So there, for those that really feel that it, some people have said things like, it's the 19th version that finally worked.
And in some cases that is true with the dash and the number.
It is.
Yeah.
If you were literally in a lab and you were doing things, you would have a way of numbering, this is the 14th try or the 15th try. Of course. But is COVID-19 a secret name for something like that? No, COV has always stand for coronavirus, and 19 was 2019, the year that it was actually most likely discovered that it existed. So not everything is a conspiracy. or in your face. Although, yes, I think in laboratories, the way that they sequence things and what they call them, and this, they have a pattern of doing it. And yes, throughout time, there have been laboratories and different things that are always trying to create something. Again, we have bioweapons because of that. And then also trying to create the cure at the same time. That does happen.
So essentially they used a descriptor term and turned it into what I call an epic term, which means sensationalized. It's just a descriptor heading. It's like a glossary title turned into a business name or a label or something like that. This is what they did with this. It was this is another angle that we're talking about, other than the other two angles that were said on both Interstellar Council and the True You. This is yet another angle of this. Now, do I believe this was created? Most certainly I do. I have found this out. Do I believe it was put in a chemtrail ahead of time and then activated with 5G? Most certainly, yes. It was activated that way in groups and clusters of people. So this is why, you know, I don't see this as dangerous as they're making it. Granted, that's my opinion, but I know by the way it's being activated, it isn't being advertised as what it actually can do.
So
Yeah.
it is interesting. So again, if you look at the total population of the world, is this a human ending event? Absolutely not.
No.
So in that type of perspective, you know, when they look back and they compare the numbers here and they compare it to the seasonal influenza, you know, there may be a slight difference, but when you're talking a world for 7.5 billion people, and then you say 40,000 die, well, you know, statistically, that isn't necessarily a large number, but if you're in the area where there's mass people who are the ones that are affected by this going at the same time, it's the end of your world. So I try to say, you know, have perspective in general, but have compassion, because there are people out there that believe no one's getting sick, and that is not true. People are becoming ill. Now, I'm going to play the let's talk logically, and again, about, let's say that this did go through a chemtrail. Let's say, because again, another conspiracy thought process out there that some people believe is that it is the 5G that's activating the virus. Okay, so let's go there. So let's go there in this conversation. And again, now you're going to have to decide who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. So listen to this. Listen to what I have to say. If you believe that, do you believe also that the people that are doing this want you to know they're doing this? And it's a simple question. Do you believe they want you to know their handbook? The answer is going to be no, because, you know, in general, people, they like to use the same patterns over and over again. So, in our world right now, most who believe that will also agree that you have both, let's call them more nefarious people, let's make them sick, and those people that don't want to see them get sick. And you've got both sets of people all the way up through the government. The other thing we've tried to say before, when you're talking about who are really the bad guys, you don't know their names. So if you know somebody's name and you're thinking they're the top of the totem pole, no, they're not. The tops of the totem pole of all this stuff, you do not know their names. They are not out there.
And they've never had names in our history except by maybe something else,
Right.
you know, when they've been on Earth.
Okay.
Those bad guys are in space.
So understand that the trueness of who the bad guys are, you don't know their names. So you could have token people that get into trouble. They'll always throw some of their own under the bus. Absolutely. It's a part of what they've done over time. They'll continue to do it. So, but the real ones, no, you don't know their names. So they don't want to give away their playbook. Meaning, how can they activate the 5G to make everyone sick now at the same time with all this social distancing in place? If they did, then if everyone started to become sick, then a lot of people would be like, how am I getting sick? either they don't know how the virus and different things transmit, or it's being transmitted a different way. A lot of people would be thinking. So in one sense, you have areas where it's active and it's going. But if you think that they're going to shut on a 5G when people are actually in these states of isolating themselves from every known way we know how to transmit a disease so far, then they'd give away their playbook, wouldn't they?
But I believe they initially did it that way. But also think of it this way. These groups have a very short period of time in which they can do these things. They do it in certain cyclical patterns that they must adhere to. This is why, in other recordings that are on our Patreon, we've also said, in military abductions and stuff like that, they have a certain finite window in which they can do things to either get it done quickly, or in certain cases it's a cyclical pattern that they're having to do something in a certain energetic rotation. The aliens do things like that, and certain space military groups do things exactly like that. So this has a small window of time where it can be utilized, and then it's gone.
So what if, even though for a lot of us who are, who would say we're really overreacting, what if there's some truth to that 5G? What if there is? Then this would be the best thing you could do. Because either they would activate it in everywhere and everyone would go like, how is this possible? Or they can't activate it because they don't want people to know how it was possible. And you could have actually had benevolence interfering with keeping people away from one another as the time clock winds down for them to not be able to do this. So again, I just ask people to really use some of the principles that we talk about, and then apply them to whatever theory you're thinking right now. And, again, if that is a method that is actually being utilized, then this is a way to thwart it. Okay? So so I'm just going there. I'm just like, let's go there and talk it out. And it's like, wow. So we also want to bring in, and again, we have not vetted what we're about to say. Maybe some of you guys can look it up. We just have heard these things. And I thought, well, if this is true, it's very interesting. So we're just having a conversation that we have not looked up yet. There were two different people that we are hearing, that one was in a science fiction writing and one was a psychic, who in different one was
time frames,
different time frames, one in the early 80s, one in the 90s, who both predicted that there would be a virus that came around and hit the world that would go as fast as it came. Okay, so we find it interesting that now one was in a book form, and in the book form, if it is true, you guys, we haven't vetted this, so I am not saying that we have our facts straight. I just think it's an interesting conversation of what if. So the potential for the book, if people want to look it up, is what? I don't remember the title. Oh, it doesn't matter the title. He'll look it up. The other person was Sylvia Brown, who was a very famous psychic. She's giving credit right now. Again, guys, maybe some of you can vet this information. I don't have a lot of time to vet. I just find it interesting if people have found that in a science fiction writing, as well as someone else, that something like a virus that will, that appeared that it was going to be a big deal just petered out.
Yeah, the book name is called The Eyes of Darkness by Dean Koontz. 1981 was when it was published. And they talk about, actually, I will, if I can see this properly. All right. Here we go. I will actually read from the passage that is actually circled here. It says, in around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments. Almost more baffling than the illness itself will be the fact that it will suddenly vanish as quickly as it arrived. Attack again 10 years later and then disappear completely. The other half of this is there's a fictional character in this book named Li Chen who actually discovers this virus, Chinese person. They call the stuff Wuhan 400 because it was developed at their rDNA labs inside the city of Wuhan. And it was the 400th variable strain of man-made microorganisms created at that time. And they called it the Wuhan 400 in that book. Well, this is eerily close to what is going on right now, and the fact that Dean Koontz wrote 2020 in 1981. This actually shows where this is going. And there's actually something I also want to point out. Sylvia Browne also mentioned these things. There are other mediums and psychics over the years that have mentioned China as the boogeyman. And have they done some horrible stuff? Yes. But, and I've said this on other shows over the years, that the cabal likes to create a boogeyman. They love doing this. It's great fiction writing. The last time they were going to try to peg China was people were spotting, and this actually happened several years back, they were spotting Chinese military on our west coast. The story that the cabal was going to create, until a lot of people like us started talking about this, even at that time, several years ago, that the Chinese, in order for us to pay off the debt to them, they bought Washington, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And this is complete BS. This was a story that was created by the cabal in order to have people point at China. And they already had people dressed up in uniforms walking up and down the East Coast in public areas, getting people to go, what? People have all but forgotten this. People have all but forgotten this. The whole SARS thing, China. And now COVID-19, China. They keep trying to say China, China, China. They're trying to create another boogeyman. First, it was the Middle East, with ISIS and all the militant groups over there. Then you got China that keeps trying to be reoccurred in these cyclical patterns, I might add, as the boogeyman. People just aren't always completely falling for it. See, they have to do they still have to do this. They're locked into this cyclical pattern. We're not. So we can say that's a load of crap that we're looking at, and then they have to wait to another rotation in order to create the next boogeyman. See, it's a bunch of fiction writers that sit in an office. They create a bunch of headlines, and they create a boogeyman. You had Osama bin Laden. Guys, he was a fictional boogeyman. His character was created. That was an actor you were looking at. I spoke at the time that happened. I knew several Arab people that I worked with at the pizza place I worked with. They had no clue who this guy was. None. And even one of his recordings, Osama bin Laden's recordings, they had at the time. The signs and posters and all the artwork that was around him, or all the props that were in the background, weren't even written. At least the ones I saw at the time. If those things have disappeared, they've disappeared, or they've Mandela affected out of existence at that time. But I saw some of these that the Arab people I worked with couldn't even read the writing. It wasn't even legible Arabic. This was like some prop gag that was put in place. Somebody out there was trying to say, hey, this is false. This was false. Look at this. And I'm not saying COVID-19 is fake as a virus. I'm saying it is a false flag in cover of something else, trying to distract away against something much larger that they needed to create this big distraction over. And also all the while creating the panic energy, all the while blaming another boogeyman. When what was happening? Chemtrails, chem clouds. We always say don't dwell on those, but I'm not blind either. I can see when something is happening. This seems to be some of the common consensus when it comes to this. But
the strategies that we've seen used over and over and over again, until, again, the one thing I've seen with this one, like I said earlier, is a lot of people are questioning this. A lot of people that don't spend their time, looking at things. A lot of people are. Then you have certain people that are reacting in the fear mode. And again, we're talking the hoarding, we're talking the things like that are going on. This becomes such a spiritual crisis, because really the one thing that's not being focused on at this period of time, which I am saddened again about, is what are your spiritual beliefs? Let's go back to the very beginning. Do you actually believe you're an everlasting soul who's just currently residing in a body that's having an experience, and then when you leave, you go on and on? These are the types of questions that people need to really start. Again, this is a soul journey. You really need to understand your current belief system. If you believe that, that you really genuinely believe that, in your hoarding or, doing something like that, you got to question yourself, what kind of experience did you really want this time around? So if you truly believe that, and you are now being unkind to people, what kind of experience is it that you're actually trying to have for yourself right now? So you've got to understand these things. Now, I can certainly understand someone who's an atheist, there is nothing else. There absolutely is nothing else. An atheist may be wanting to hoard, because a lot of their belief system is once you're gone, there is nothing. There is nothing. So I want to hang around as long as possible to at least have some experience. But if you truly believe that you are an everlasting soul, do you really want to be around if Armageddon is coming our way? I know I don't. I have no interest in it at all. But so my point is, you should be also reflecting on the spiritual side, and what is it? And then what is the experience that you want? For many of us, and we've said this so many times, so we're going to bring back some of our old material that we talk about. For many of us who have been caught in something we refer to as a false reincarnation cycle, you have gone through death and destruction and despair over and over and over again in your lifetimes, because it generates a type of energy that other beings that you do not see feed off of. We've said this, if you go back and listen to the shows, over and over and over again. So you've kind of been programmed, again, in a sense, to constantly have these lifetimes. So now we're in a current moment where you're really at a decision point. What kind of rest of my life am I going to have? Am I going to do death, destruction, and fear, which on a very hard soul level, if you think about it, you've done it before. How much more is there really to learn now? You've done it. You've been in the Middle Ages. You've been through the wars. You've been through the despair. You've been through the pandemics, the real ones, the plague. You've done it, people. You want to do it again? Come on. Or there's really a precipice now where the co-creation, you can say, no, I've done it, not doing it. If I'm attached to that and someone's trying to make me do it again, not planning on it. And then actually start doing what needs to be done in order to create this to go a different way. So the one other area that I think we wanted to cover is that you are not a victim here. You cannot see yourself as a victim. If you believe anything that we talk about, that you are co-creative beings, then you do have co-creative powers. What we've said over and over again, though, is unfortunately, people have been more programmed to co-create additional fear, to co-create additional struggle, to co-create these things. That's what we've learned to do. Because in order to co-create it not being and becoming over with, you have to spend your time focusing on what that looks like to not have the virus killing people, to see everybody getting what they need, to seeing anybody who needs toilet paper getting it, to see that people will find a way to reach out and still communicate and create bonds, because we are a social being. So you have to be willing, in a sense, to don't do the what ifs of what's coming out in the media, but you have to create your own vision of people getting along, of the children, again, right now, they're home for the next few weeks, and a lot of places want to do homeschooling. Why don't you take a moment to envision parents that have put together a good plan? The children are happy and healthy. The children are still learning. There is success in these homeschool programs for right now, and then they'll be back to school in a little bit. Another thing, what to do with your time in the United States and many parts of the country right now, this is the time to prepare for a garden. Why don't you get online with your kids and do, even if it's just a plant, start teaching your kids how to appreciate neighbor, how to grow something, and utilize this right now, and seeing people now utilizing and picking up skills that are for their highest good, rather than focusing so much on the daily death total that is minuscule compared to the population as a whole. And blown out of proportion to other diseases you never pay attention to on a yearly basis. So these are the kinds of things that, if I could encourage people to do, it'd be let's co-create properly. And it's going to make you have to step away, and it's going to make you need to think about what is running through your own mind. And, and a bit of saying, as you did a post. Chris doesn't post much. She's done a few lately, of saying in your way, no, I don't believe this is going to wipe out my community. No, I don't believe this is going to wipe out anyone. It's not going to affect anyone unless it is already their soul's agreement of that's when they were going to leave. Because the one thing, again, we are born and the body dies and we go on. That is my belief. Or if you're atheist, you don't go on. But you can't get around the fact that no one lives forever. So why don't we focus on the only people that are going to leave are the ones that are meant to, because this was their agreement, of when they leave. And people leave at all ages. It is a shame that they decided to run a news article and make everyone know that a 34-year-old person with what didn't appear to be these huge health things died of this. Well, he maybe this was the sole agreement of when he was leaving. What do you believe? But that's now, they want to make sure everybody knows that even if you're younger, you could be the 1 or 2 out of the entire population that succumbs to this. And there are people with underlying health conditions that potentially could be more susceptible at all age ranges.
Yeah, and also with this, in your co-creative skills, if you are so inclined to always focus on the virus itself, focus on it dying. Focus on it not existing anymore. If you're going to actually focus on that term, focus on the virus being all over the place, don't be in fear of it, focus on it just petering out of existence completely. That means do not give it power that it does not necessarily possess or never possess to begin with. Because of the fantastic fiction writers out there and the sensationalization of it in the press. Do not focus on that aspect of it. Focus on it just petering out. And also there has been something else occurring this week. I told you the energies in the post on Facebook. I said the energies were drastically different than the week prior to this. So very, very different. It is indescribable. How different this energy is. I'm getting this buzz in my head. I had started out, I believe it was last weekend that this actually took place. It started building and building and building, and I'm not saying this energy is evil by any stretch of the imagination. It's just incredibly intense. It's as if you have a like you're standing next to a big like electromagnet or something. It's very, very intense. It's made my ears run and ring constantly. It's also there's been a lot of holographic activity lately that is being I believe that portion of it is being brought down from the blockade. The holographic and binary network junk is just unbelievable how strong that is. And programming, I would have to say that's increased as well. even from the week before. It has scattering and varying results, but it seems to be randomized versus just focused. It seems to be popping up all over the place. There's the focus programming that seems to be scattered and all over the place. So with this energy, I did also say there have been brutal attacks because of this. There have been brutal attacks because of this energetically. Very brutal. More than I have seen ever. That the way these entities are reacting is just even more insane than they normally do. And some of the different kinds, I'm running into different types of galactics and elementals too. But also the fact that there has been such a divide between the beings that are obeying what I refer to as the yield and those that do not. There seems to be a divide here. The splitting of the density seems to be increasing exponentially fairly quickly, and this weird buzzing of the energies, even out here amongst the trees, it's driving me nuts. So there's the trees are not adequately filtering it. I have yet to identify what this vibration is. It could be the advent of 5D, going into 5D, because remember, energies would be more intense, and it would be worse if you're holding on to junk you don't need to be holding on to, energetically old belief systems. That makes it 100 times worse if you're holding on to something. This is a very intense energy, and it's a very scattered energy. It seems to also be more focused inside the homes of people. I don't know if this is Cabal related. I don't believe so. I believe they're contributing. I believe people's anxieties are contributing to the chaotic energy. But I believe the one that I'm speaking of now, the more intense one, has nothing to do with the Cabal at all. I believe they may be just as shocked by this as we are. So I do not believe they've created that one. The rest of it, yeah, I will give that to them. This, no. This is actually something that I believe was out of their control as well. And as in control as they believe they are, you cannot control Source Creator. So this is something that is outside of whatever the hell it is they were thinking up next. And it can be painful, to go up that high in vibration really quickly. This is a mix of that and the anxiety that's in the air. But this is more of a buzzing. Like if you just sit and I'll just sit and my teeth start to chatter. Yes, I've hit vibrations before that do that. This is so vastly different than all of those combined. And if anybody feels this, inside of your head will be buzzing. If you have any alien tech in you and you've had involvement with aliens, this energy seems to be sending implants and stuff into a tailspin. It seems to be just either activating them or dulling them in some fashion to where they go nuts, kind of like if you put a magnet near a phone or something or near a computer, it's all over the place. And it seems like it's wreaking havoc, but I don't feel this is evil. I feel this is some really big cleansing, actually.
Probably, and it kind of goes back to what we tried to say about the incoming energies here recently anyway. Again, this is now a different tier of energy, but, before that, if you guys saw what we referred to as, the show that was the first wave of energies,
Yes.
and then the second, this would be like the third, I guess, would be the third wave of energy. But in general, we were saying within the second wave of energy, it was really bringing attention in lives of people who are really holding on to hard belief systems. What's interesting to me that's happening on right now is you've got then all of the belief systems, these major belief systems, being potentialized all at the same time. So you got your doomsday preppers, they're now hyped. You got your pandemic zombie people, they're now hyped, right? You've got, your religious ideologies with the rapture and with this, now that's activated. So it's a very interesting time because all of the potentials of all of the, let's say, cataclysmic type of situations are all now activated in everybody at the same time. time. So it's an interesting thing because we were saying, if you have very strong belief systems, you now are going to be heavily beaten. So in one fell swoop, something came along and activated everybody in all those belief systems at the exact same time.
Yeah, then it created the programming imbalances that are all
It just created it. So the interesting thing is, when nothing occurs, what you going to do with those belief systems? And that could be part of a role within, let's say, benevolence. When this doesn't, and let's say if everyone co-creates this out of existence, because there was no doubt that we can, what are people going to do with those belief systems? Are they going to be questioning them? Are they going to say, what if I got it wrong? Or what if there's something else? So it is an interesting wave that I think these energies are actually really doing a number on people. And again, it doesn't matter whether or not you follow us and you think the possibilities of what we're talking about are true in spiritual growth. It's affecting you anyway. You don't have to.
Doesn't matter where you are, it's affecting you. Yeah.
It's affecting you. So you're, in a sense, everyone will be questioning a lot of things within themselves, whether or not they feel like and many people won't ever talk about it because of, again, that shame, blame, and guilt, where I believed all this, now I feel stupid for it. They won't, and a lot of people, but it is affecting them. And the other thing, on a positive co-creative note, I try to, help people understand, you don't have to have the concrete belief. In this, you could just say, it's not what I want. So I would challenge everybody right now listening to this, and you could bring this up in conversation. Do you really want something going around the earth as far as a disease that wipes out all these people? Do you want that?
And do you want the Mad Max Earth? No, I don't think you do.
Do you really want that? And so if you say no, even in a theoretical discussion, I don't want that. That's a positive co-creation right there, because you're saying you don't desire a world like that. The interesting thing you may find, though, is those that will not say they don't want that. So again, it could, provoke an interesting thing, a realization about people who find it hard to say, I don't want that. Because again, then what is it that do you want? And I'm telling you, there are all these different people. Now, some people, I want the rapture because I'm tired and I feel I've been good all my life and I want to be plucked out of here. So no, you guys can all burn in hell and I want the rapture. Would you find it interesting if somebody really had that concrete belief system? Then they would be probably all for this right now because they're waiting for it. So it's an interesting dynamic and conversation. I would say, please don't judge another person. But what I feel is that most people would basically say no. So if you don't know what to do and you feel helpless, bring that up. Give people an opportunity to say, I don't want it. Okay, because that adds to the co-creation of it not occurring. And many people on a subconscious level are saying they don't want it, which again is also adding. You don't have to believe this is how it is occurring and what's happening. You just have to be open to the possibility. If that potential came up, you already know the answer of what you want and how you want it to go down. That's not unmeaningful. It's the same thing as when we talk about people maybe remembering something of a past life or remembering something of a secret space program. You don't have to believe it all to help reintegrate it. You have to be open to the possibility that it could have occurred.
Yes.
That's all you have to be. That's all you have to be at. And sometimes you have to be at that point of not being in such denial and saying, wow, this could have happened to me. And then you heal from it because you've just opened up your mind exponentially to actually allow for the healing. Because the way it works is that, you only deal with what you believe in. And you will reinforce what you believe in. And that's how that works, because you'll only recognize things that reinforce a current belief system. So, for me, I like the idea of, going to the store and everyone's nice to one another and I'm going to be nice. And so my experience so far is everyone's nice to one another because that's That's my expectation and my belief system. So that's what I focus on. I'm not going to focus on the one person who was crabby. I'm going to focus on everyone else who was nice and kind. And so, so you have to understand how your belief systems work, even in a healing process, in a co-creative process, to help this. So that's not a hard discussion to have with any family member. They may think you're cuckoo in your belief systems, whatever, but you would just say simply, if this were really a possibility that this would, be a pandemic to wipe everyone out, do you want that? Most people will say no, and then they don't unknowingly add it to a positive co-creation. Okay, so you don't have to get people to believe in everything you believe in order to elicit a response out of them that's a positive co-creation, people. You don't. And so understand that as well, as far as things to talk about and things to bring up, in conversations where you can actually get, for the vast majority, agreement and start a positive co-creation. So I don't know, we may have covered a lot that we wanted to talk about, because we did want to talk about how to positively co-create, what to focus on. The other thing as far as positive co-creation, again, you spoke about this, and I think it was Ophelia that was you were channeling, who also spoke about this. The truth is, guys, if you see everybody else as stupid, they become stupid. If you see that that's what they are that. So if you feel all your leaders are stupid and inept, your leaders are stupid and inept. And that's how they will remain, or even get worse, because you've now created that intention. So if you want your leaders to be responsible and caring, and, actually doing best for all, then you need to see them as responsible and caring. If you can't envision that by literally watching the press conference now, don't watch it, and play out a press conference in your own head where these same people are saying responsible things that you feel, that are actually doing and making decisions for everyone's highest good, where people truly are benefiting from it. So you've got to understand, in your frustration, don't co-create negative things, because you have the ability to do that. And so it's challenging and hard, because these are skills we all have to learn, and we have to all learn how to undo what we've learned life after life, which is to co-create negatively, to now start using those skills to co-create positively. And it is something that has to be unlearned and then relearned. So work on that as well.
So I believe we've covered it here today, folks. And hopefully all of you listening to this will take this to heart. And also, as I said in my message on Facebook, the cabal is trying to gaslight people into a reaction. They're trying to get people to riot. They're trying to get people to react violently towards people that are perceived as stupid. Like the toilet paper crisis thing that's been going on. So, yeah, and is it stupid? Yes, but those people are being affected just like you are being affected, just like the cabal is actually aiming this at everybody. They are attempting to elicit a response so they can lock down the entire country. That's why all these dumb situations keep popping up. They're hoping people go, enough, and rise up against them, and people don't understand. They have Star Trek level technology, teleportation, spaceships, all of it. So how would you violently react against something like that? No, you don't. You change the energy to make sure that they can't do what they're wanting to do. Again, they have a cyclical pattern of time, a certain time frame in which they can pull that off. That's why they're exponentially building this. It goes past that marker, it peters out. Until the next rotation, they've got to try something. I don't believe they're going to do something quite like this again. Don't quote me on that. I feel there's a few other things in their sack that are left, but not many. But do not give them the pleasure of seeing you react to this in that way. in that way. I'm not saying don't say no.
No, you should say no.
Say you always
say
have
no,
to say
I
no.
don't accept the death toll. No, this will not
I
occur.
do not accept this.
No,
I do not want this.
I do not want this. No, and again, that's how you should be reacting, and then spending the time. And again, if you're in home, write it down. Write what you want. Write it down. Start, and then whatever you write down, pretend it's occurring. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? You know, bring in all of those descriptors to the vision that you're having, okay? And that's how the energies change to bring you what you are co-creating. You don't have to be too broad. You don't have to do a world event. Just do it in your community, or do it amongst your family, or do something like that. Or in, like I say, I always use work meetings. You know, bring it into your work meeting. See how this one's going to work out. You know what I mean? You know, say a small prayer that, you know, this space is neutral and everything in here will be done for its highest good, for everyone's highest good. Everyone. People are going to have to learn how to compromise at times. People are going to have to learn skills that, you know, that they've forgotten how to do. So, again, we hope you get something out of this and something to really think of. And again, not feel so helpless. Do not feel like a victim. And, you know, what can you do? Well, you can potentially, if you got a cell phone, reach out to others that potentially, you know, may be really lonely. Check on them, have a conversation about something, or let them vent. Let them, you know, vent. Let them tell you what you're scared of, and then tell them your vision of it not occurring. Let them buy into your vision. But, you know, so remember these people that legitimately, out of real concern, are isolating themselves a little bit to ensure that, you know, they don't get ill. And then everyone else, hopefully shortly, will be getting back onto business as usual.
I do believe past this point, it'll be forever changed past this point for everyone. I believe this created a lot more awareness to what has been going on, at least in some respect. And I don't believe it's going to be completely business as usual. I mean, in other respects, yes. Energetically and also awareness in certain areas, no. Because there's a lot of people that have never experienced something like this ever. So it's going to change that fundamentally forever. So I believe we're good at this time. Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of The Lifting. We appreciate it. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.